Hey, Grand Ascension, it's me, Nisi Denise, back to do a short reading. I'm at lunch and I thought I'd jump right into it. I want to point something out really quick before we get started in Claudio Nocelli's work. I want to shout out Guy Anderson, amazing author and researcher. If you guys have not, if you don't remember, I have read to you this entire book cover to cover, Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Kids. Also, Rise of the Clones. I've read to you cover to cover. And I've read to you excerpts from his latest edition, Conspiracy Theorists from Agartha to Zombies. Excellent, excellent work. I am looking forward to him doing a live with Taylor Durden. Hopefully he's going to be coming up soon. The reason why I point his work out is to tie it in with other things that we've been discussing. Most people don't know that in this quote unquote world or realm, world or planet stands for planes of existence. All right. Most people don't know in this planes of existence, there is a hierarchy, and then there are loyal or elite parasitic families. Okay. So when I'm reading to you from Claudio Nocelli's work and getting into Enoch again here shortly, I want to call out the 13 bloodline families. Okay. This work is coming directly from Guy Anderson. I have shared his work as well as Chuck Swindoll. There are a lot of great researchers out there, but I wanted to shout Guy Anderson out. If you guys have not purchased any of his books, I highly recommend you do so. Okay. I have read to you. All you got to do is go to my YouTube channel and also over here on Facebook and look at the videos that I've done. I've entitled them Tesla and the Cabbage Patch Children or Rise of the Clones. It's Guy's work. So shout out to Guy. He's in the UK. He's in Great Britain. 13 bloodline families are as follows. Now, there are more families we can add to this list, but I'm just giving you what he has in this book. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Windsors, the Kennedys. Yes, I said the Kennedys. The Romanovs, Bruces, the Amicis, Habsburg, the Krupps, the Planagets, the Planagets or Planet. I hope I said that right. Sinclairs, the Warburgs, and the Hanovers. Those are the loyal families that Claudio talks about. There are a few others that he has not mentioned that I do know of, that you could say that they're part of the elite families. Okay. And the pyramid structure. Why do I talk about the pyramid structure? Well, again, here's Guy Anderson's work. I've also reshared Chuck Swindoll's pyramid. It is number 1, the world monarch, Crown Council of 13, the Committee of 300, and the Club of Rome. The think tanks, the central banks, tax revenue and interest revenues, okay, corporations, religions and governments, population and workers, or what Chuck Swindoll calls us, the feeders and the breeders, okay? So that is the hierarchy here in this plane of existence within the rings, okay? We're in the middle, like here. We're in the very center. We have ice walls around us. You go out, there's more lands. You go out more and there's more lands, and there's 9 realms. Okay. So while they're pointing us up to look at NASA and the Artemis mission, they're pointing us up to go outer space. We need to focus on the inner space within us and also look outside of the ice walls, because that's where the planes of existence are. I'm not saying that there is not a creator of all or a source. Some people will call it God. There is an intelligence, but you have to understand that there are parasites that are breeding with us and that they've taken over this realm. And this is why the world is the way that it is right now. That's why I'm reading to you, and that's why I'm explaining certain things to you. All right. So these are his 3 books right here. And as you can tell, I've got them all marked up and highlighted with tabs and pages. So let's get into Claudio's next work. All right. We're on chapter 3, Stars, Architecture of Order. All right. Let's get into it. Central objective. Consolidation of perpetual obedience through a stable celestial visual pattern. The stars were not selected to beautify. They were selected to fix a structure. Like I told you, the sky is a giant clock. It is. Okay. An empty sky would be very suspicious. A chaotic sky would be unstable, open to interrogation. What is required is something else entirely a pattern. A pattern repeated across generations does not provoke doubt. It is assumed. And once something is assumed, it exists, the field of what can be questioned, or it exits the field of what can be questioned. So if it's a natural sky that you see out there and you don't see anything and it's void, you would question why it looks the way it does. I'm telling you, this is a brilliant plan. When you guys understand what's transpired, you really got to tip your hat to these people. All right. Scale places the human below and the distance above without the need for argument. Regularity installs trust. Trust neutralizes verification. Authority converts the external into a superior reference, displacing direct experience. There's always the leading top scientists and educators from MIT, from Harvard, from Yale, from all these prestigious institutions that are none other set up and founded by who? The 13 bloodline families that I just read to you. And also, I know I'm going to get some hate for this, but I'm just going to say it anyway. For all of you ones that attended HBCUs, best believe they tied back to the 13 bloodline families too, especially if you've pledged in one of those fraternities or sororities. They're tied directly to those folks. And the Freemasons and the Eastern Stars are also tied to these people. Just going to tell you, it's brilliant. Regularity installs trust. Trust neutralizes verification. Authority converts the external into a superior reference, displacing direct experience. The ceiling dominates because it becomes a visual norm. A visual norm embeds itself more deeply than any other written rule. The star as a stable reference and the human as a transitory reference. The subject cannot compete with what appears permanent. For this reason, a sky is required in which lights maintain a repeatable pattern. All right. We got the constellations, all the stars, the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, blah, 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 with sufficient regularity to be felt as order rather than an event. Literal immobility is unnecessary. It is enough that the whole retains coherence and that its variations are presented as part of a reliable mechanism. The result is immediate. The human comes to interpret themselves as transitory, while the sky is interpreted as a superior reference. Obedience does not arise from fear. It arises from silent comparison. I change, this repeats. I die, this continues. All right. Once that comparison is installed, the mind relinquishes its claim to centrality. And without centrality, the impulse towards the edge weakens because the subject no longer feels like an axis and begins to feel like a passerby. Constellations, hey, I can't tell who's joined me. Constellations, symbolic literacy, and domestication. So again, let's recap. The reason why I'm reading this book is to shed some light on how this order or structure is within this dome world. Okay. So what I'm simply saying to you is there is a pyramid structure here. There's a hierarchy here in this world. All right. I just read to you that. And I also read to you the 13 bloodline families that are tied directly to all of the pyramid structures. Each family has a different structure. One could have the Federal Reserve, one or the banking, one could have the food industry, one could have the pharmaceutical industry, and they're cross-correlate. They cross or they intermix. Also, these families also marry within each other. I'm just going to tell you. And if you go back far enough, like I've told you, Camiro Awa and also Fabrice Must Know, I reshare their stuff over here on Facebook as well as YouTube. They have broke down videos of how you can go out there yourself and go research the coat of arms for these 13 bloodline families. They would have you to think that they're Caucasian or light skinned. They're not. The initial bloodline families were all melanated. And if you go back far enough on your internet search and do the house of or coat of arms, you'll see the coat of arms, you'll see the pictures of the people, and you'll see that they were all melanated. That's why I'm telling you the unseen hand is actually melanated people. Like you have the Pope that you see today on TV, then you have the gray Pope, you have the black Pope. I'm telling you, it is fascinating when you start to cross-correlate and put all these puzzle pieces together. You'll see the structure of this dome. The reason why I'm reading this to you is because this was given to Claudio when he was behind the ice walls and he was in the celestial library. He's able to see the structure of what was given to these loyal families are these parasitic families, the 13 bloodline families, how they carry out the structure within this dome, and how they have the majority of people hoodwinked. But like my son and I say, because, I told you about one of my sons is a truck driver. He drives and he has a dedicated route. My thing is, when he's driving, he listens to a lot of different podcasts, and he always tells me, I'm not getting off subject, I'm just making a point real quick. He always tells me, Mom, the majority of people do not have time to go research the stuff that you're talking about because they're so busy earning a paycheck, trying to pay their bills, trying to live and survive and worry about how they're going to have gas, how they're going to have this, that, and the other, take care of their families. They don't even understand this stuff. I'm just like, I know, son. But the crazy thing about it is we should not be living the way that we're living, you guys. They have billions of dollars to give to NASA to fund some quote unquote out of space research when you got people here sleeping on the street, homeless people sleeping on the street, or elderly people that don't have meals, enough food to eat, and can't pay their bills. I mean, I'm just telling you, the reason why this world is upside down is because we have a parasitic race. We have a parasitic invasion, and it starts from inside, right? So I'll tell you, parasite cleanses are supposed to be the norm for us here in the Americas, as it is around the world. We have parasites within our body, and we have parasites ruling this plane of existence. That's my point. That's why I'm sharing this information. Okay. I know a lot of people don't have time to purchase books and read. So that's why I come on here and I read and I give you the examples. I give you the information. And if you have time, then you go do your research and you put the puzzle pieces together. I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I'm just sharing some freaking fascinating information that most people will miss. Okay. That is why the things are the way they are right now. Okay. So let me finish this part up because we still got to read the book of Enoch. So this next part is constellation, symbolic literacy, and domestication. So these are the steps of what they've done to hoodwink everybody, okay? To indoctrinate the masses, as I like to say. A constellation is not a drawing. It is delivered as an imposed method of reading. Where there are points, humans create shapes. Where there are shapes, they create stories. Where there are stories, a sense of belonging emerges, okay? Layer 3 exploits this natural tendency and redirects it. Imagination is permitted. Remember what I said, when you go into the public school system, it correlates with the prison system. If you look at prison, you look at school, it's the same thing. I'm just telling you, it's the same exact thing. They do not celebrate individuality in school. Okay. You need to learn how to assimilate, have social structure, social skills, and be around other children and share and learn the curriculum and be a good little slave and a little servant. I'm just telling you. And of course, bad behavior is not tolerated in these institutions, right? As it should not be. But what I'm telling you is a Montessori school would be better for your child, or if you can stay home and homeschool them. All right. So imagination is permitted. Okay. But only with a predefined frame. In this way, the individual feels free. Okay. I see figures, right? While the structure that organizes those figures is not theirs, right? Interpretation is not forbidden. A menu of interpretations is offered, okay? One that keeps the gaze lifted in cultural divination or devotion, okay? So, and I know this is going to rub some people the wrong way, and I truly don't come on here to try to start any shit, but I've read so much, and it's not like I know a lot. I just read and I assimilate the information because I asked for knowledge, and the creator of all is giving me that, okay? My point is, the majority of people do not understand here in the America that the Aboriginal people of this land are quote unquote people that look like me. They're melanated. Everybody else is immigrants. The Federalist Papers, the Constitution, all ties back to the Aboriginal American, which is quote unquote the Negro who was reclassified. Excuse me. The reason why I bring that up, and it seems like I talk about this a lot because I need for you to understand something. You have immigrants that come here that are running this government, right? You do. And this is why things are the way they are, because you have infiltrators that have come over here and set up shop. All right. And again, it ties back to parasites and the parasitic race. And there's said group of 13 bloodline families, and those who say they are the chosen ones, but are not, the small hat people. All right. I'm just going to tell you, Everything ties in and it's like a puzzle piece. And when you put the pieces together, you see it for what it is. All right. So interpretation is forbidden. A menu of interpretations is offered, one that keeps the gaze lifted in cultural devotion. A lot of people will come over and say, well, my forefathers, my great great grandparents came over from Ireland. They only had so much money in their pocket. My other folks came over here from England. My other people came from, Germany and what have you. They came over here and they set up little communities and little towns in New York and in California, and, my ancestors came over from China. They're here. Yeah, they're immigrants. And really and truly, the only ones that actually have birthright citizenship are the Aboriginal people here in this land. And Trump and his attorneys know that. And there are a lot of people that study law, especially at that level of government. They know the truth too. It's just you and I are not educated in that. And if you don't start to go read and research, like my cousin told me I need to take a civics class, like if you don't go read and research yourself, you won't ever know this. So everybody is taking advantage of a privilege, but really and truly a privilege can end. All right. And it can. And the only ones that really are tied to this birthright citizenship, and I don't even want to say it because we're not citizens, we're sovereign entities under the Federalist Papers and the Constitution that the U.S. corporation made with the tribes. All right. And I'm not talking about the rich tribes, the ones that were granted after they paid a certain amount of money to establish themselves. I'm talking about the melanated people that were here previously during the fall of Tartary and the Reconstruction. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Last part. It says, night reduces external activity and increases introspection and amplifies sensitivity. This makes it the optimal setting for imprinting scale and destiny. A stable sky at night does not merely inform, it leaves a mark. Okay. So it says, the human mind is conditioned to require an above, when you look up, right, that appears greater than itself. The stars fulfill this function with absolute efficiency. So there's order within this structure. All right. And I'm telling you, and I know this is going to be hard for a lot of you because it goes against what you were taught and how you were groomed and how you grew up and what you were taught when you were raised. Right. The sky is a CGI. It's not real. Yes, you can go up in an airplane and you can look at the clouds. You can, and you can almost look like you could walk out on the airplane wing and touch the clouds. I've read to you guys at least 150 patents on how they can manipulate the weather, how they can generate clouds, how they cloud seed. I did that already. I've read those to you. You just need to go back and look at the video. But I'm just simply telling you, it's a structure. And if the sky would actually, if that CGI would go down or this invisible dome projector would actually crack and you would actually see what the sky would look like, people would freak out. They would come unglued because they wouldn't understand that this is actually in a controlled environment and a controlled experiment. And we're not truly living. We're existing because they've given us a narrative and a life to live. And we're not living the life that we're truly meant to live. We're not connected to source. Okay. So we finished this one up. So let's get into Enoch because I don't want to be in here too long. I'm at lunch. I hope these readings are beneficial to you guys. And I hope I've explained some things to you all. But, like I said, my information is not for everybody. It truly has to be someone that has an open mind and really sees that there's a problem with society and there's a problem and you can pinpoint where the problem is. All right. It's the same people. They just change their names. They change, their structure somewhat, but it's the same MO. They say they have the same motive. They have the same agenda. Okay. Now, if you remember yesterday, I read you these 3 questions. I want you to keep those in the forefront of your mind. What exactly did Enoch claim to have seen? All right. What path did he describe in detail? And why were his writings preserved so carefully for so long? As I've told you before, I've read excerpts from the book of Enoch to you all in videos in the past, along with the Lost Teachings or Lost Book of Enki. And I've also read to you excerpts from Marduk's book. All right. So the next part we're going to do is, I don't know if I read to this part or not. I did read this yesterday, but I want to call something out. I want to read this question to you really quick before we get into the next chapter. Okay. Here are some unavoidable questions. So I read to you 3, but here's some more. Why did such different cultures describe a structure of the world in such a similar way? So wherever you go, if you're in China, if you're in Japan, if you're in Russia, if you're in Great Britain, all around the world, the Aboriginal cultures or the Aboriginal people have a story or a written, I wouldn't say written, but have a lore or a story that they carry forward, either by word of mouth or maybe they did write it down at some point, right? So the map presented in this book that I'm reading to you from, Nocelli's map, Terra Infinita, Hyperborea, and the 9 concentric realms, offers a concrete visual form aligned with the cosmologies. Like I said, the heliocentric model will have you look at the planet Earth and then the sun, the moon, and all the other planets rotating around it. But that's not really how it is. They would have you look up in the sky as outer space. But what I'm telling you is you need to look outwardly. It's lateral, it's horizontal, okay? Because there are more planes of existence or planets outside the ringed walls that we now know as Antarctica, the ice wall. That's my point, all right? And they discourage people from going there and taking those trips. I mean, you can. I looked it up, me and my husband. I think the cheapest trip I found was like $13,000 per person. All right. You can get up to the 20s, 30s, and 100,000 range, depending on if you want to charter ship, if you want to have a private crew. You have destinations and you have an agenda when you go. It is quite expensive. So the average person probably will never take a trip there. Right. I am going to go at some point. I'm going to go before I exit this body. That's my plan. All right. The message for the future generation. Let's get into it. And this is the last part. The book of Enoch begins with a statement that defines from the very outset the scope of its content. Before describing angels, giants, or visions of the world, the text introduces 2 key elements. Listen up. A time of judgment. All right. And an audience that does not belong to Enoch's own generation. That would have us to believe that they're talking about us right now, okay, in this state of existence that we're in, right? In its opening, the book presents a blessing directed towards those who will exist at a specific moment. This is the message of the blessing of Enoch, addressed to the righteous and to the chosen who will pass through the time of tribulation. Many people would say we're going through a tribulation right now. Jesus is coming back and he's going to return and, you know, we're going to have a rapture, blah, 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 blah. All right. This is what the religious dichotomy would have you to believe, right? Believe is a lack of knowledge and knowing. I'm just going to simply tell you, this is what the book says. It says, the chosen who will pass through the time of tribulation when the wicked are finally separated, adapted from 1 Enoch, 1:1. Here for the first time, the framework in which the text must be understood is established. Tribulation is introduced as a defined period in which a separation between the righteous and the wicked takes place. This message, therefore, is situated within that scenario. However, it is in the final passage where the book clarifies with precision who the message is truly intended for. Now, listen up. And he uttered his parable saying, Enoch, a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by God, beheld the vision of the Holy One in the heavens, revealed to him by the angels. From them he heard all things and came to understood what he saw. Yet this message was not for his own generation, but for one yet to come, adapted from 1 Enoch 1 verse 2. This declaration establishes that the revelation was not meant to be understood in its own time. It clearly speaks of a later age. From this point onward, the book ceases to be read merely as an ancient account and begins to present itself as text whose understanding depends on the moment of the reader. Not everything it describes appears intended to be immediately understood. If the message was not directed to its own generation, then is it possible that certain passages, especially those describing regions, journeys, or the structure of the world, require a different context in order to be interpreted with greater clarity? Was it perhaps intended to be understood in the modern times we are now living? Okay, that's why I tell you guys need to go read it. Okay. For an era in which discussions about lands beyond the ice walls have begun to emerge with renewed seriousness. Okay. In this way, the text does more than preserve traditions of past. It raises questions for the reader. It suggests that part of its content remains in waiting, as if it must be observed from another time. And within that waiting, a detail appears that often goes unnoticed. The text describes an event that affects both the earth and those who observe from above. And all shall be seized with fear. The watchers shall tremble, and great fear and trembling shall take hold of them to the ends of the earth. 1 Enoch 1:5. Who do you think the watchers are? I told you, they walk among us. There's multiple alien races. I've read to you in Claudio's work, 178 known worlds. There's actually 200 plus known planets or worlds, all right, beyond the ice walls. Again, you got to understand that we're looking up. They're taught you to look up at the heliocentric model and the rotation of the earth and the sun and the moon and all the stars. What I'm simply telling you is that you need to stretch it out and look. There are 9 concentric circles or 9 realms. And within those 9 realms, there are over 200 worlds. All right. That's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm telling you. All right. So it says, the watchers tremble. The reptilians are one, 9 factions of them. The Lyrians, the Maldekians, even us, the Atlanteans. I'm telling you, there are multiple beings in this realm or plane of existence where we are. We're just not taught that. Yeah, to understand, this is only for someone who's got a critical thinking mind and who can discern the information and read it for what it is. All right. The fear does not fall upon humanity alone, the book says. Those, according to the account itself, watch, teach, and intervene also react like entities affected by the same event. If what is described provokes fear even among the watchers, then the nature of that event may not be as simple as punishment or purification. It may point to something deeper, something that alters not only those who inhabit the surface, which is us, we're surface dwellers, because there are communities or cities underground. Okay, there's whole life forms that live underground. Multiple races of beings live under our feet. Whether you want to accept it or not, I can't help you on that. Either you know or you don't. All right. It says, another important detail provided by this passage is following. And the high mountains shall be shaken, and the lofty hills shall be brought low, and shall melt like wax before the flame. 1 Enoch 1:6. I'm trying to tell you that we've had 5 resets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5. That means 5 different periods of civilizations have gone. They've been wiped off the face of the planet, whether by plasma strikes, meltology, like it says in this book. The mountains become wax. You can see it with the Grand Canyon. That is why it's blocked off. And 80% of the Grand Canyon is not allowed or treadable by humans. They only have a small section that we can go into. If you try to go any further, you can get federal charges brought against your ass, or you can come up missing. I'm just telling you, go do your research. You'll see I'm telling you the truth. Certain sections you cannot fly over, whether you got a helicopter or a small Cessna airplane. You will not be able to get cleared to go over certain parts of the Grand Canyon. And there's a reason for it, because that's the true Egypt. That's where all the information is. That's where the civilizations are. And that's where the entrance is to other planes of existence. So what I'm telling you is there's been 5 resets and this has happened. We're number 6. And when this comes down to it, this may be the final one. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I perceive and what my understanding is. All right. So, and the high mountains shall be shaken, and the lofty hills shall be brought low, and shall melt like wax before the flame. 1 Enoch. Okay, it's my time. 1 Enoch 1:6. This suggests the possibility of a physical transformation of the land itself, something akin to a boundary or limit being broken down or reduced. The reference to melting introduces another element to consider, a limit imposed that could be disappeared, such as the ice walls. From this point, the text demands a deeper level of analysis. I'm going to tell you this, okay? Since I know my time is up, I'm going to tell you this. The last reset, when Tartaria was here, all these big, beautiful, grand buildings were here, and our ancestors were here. And, they were melanated. Yes, there were some Caucasian people here, but not on the scale that we have today. Those ice walls were not up. Okay. They were not up. You could travel freely. All right. There were boundaries. Yes. But what I'm simply telling you is now that we are coming to this age of this last civilization that we're in, the civilization that's present, we cannot traverse past those ice walls. We would have a hard time doing so. All right. It's locked down tighter than Fort Knox. I'm just going to tell you that. I find it fascinating. So those ice walls didn't exist before. And on maps, you'll see that it was green and it was open and there was no ice. That's my point. All right. Let me read this part. It's only 2 pages. I know I'm a little late going back from lunch, but this next part, Earth, a closed system. Now, take a screenshot of this because this is what it really looks like. All right. So this is one planet. This is another planet. This is another planet. This is another planet. All right. Like I said, it's horizontal, not vertical. All right. And it says, unlike the previous passages, the text introduces a different element here. It does not speak of judgment, punishment, or entities. It speaks of something more subtle, yet equally significant: order. There is order. Okay. Observe all things that take place in the heavens, how the luminaries do not change their course and do not transgress their order. Adapted from Enoch 2, verse 1. And that's first Enoch. The observation points towards consistency, toward that which repeats without variation. The movement of the lights, the cycles of the seasons, and the behavior of the earth itself. Look upon the earth, how none of its works change. Enoch 2:2. What the text presents as harmony can also be read from another perspective, one that suggests absolutely stability. Nothing deviates. Nothing interrupts the cycles. Nothing appears to escape the established order, as if governed by a predefined system. If everything everything always follows the same course, then the question is no longer what happens, but why nothing different ever occurs. Is this a natural balance or a system that sustains itself? Yet not everything fits entirely within that framework. The text itself introduces an observation that, although brief, disrupts the apparent uniformity of the system. Observe how all the trees wither and the leaves fall, except 14, which retain their foliage until new ones grow. Enoch 3:1. At first glance, everything seems to decay, renew, and respond to a defined cycle. We are going through cycles within our bodies, within our avatars, within these vessels. You are born, you go through childhood, you learn how to walk, you crawl, you run, you're taught how to speak, you're taught how to live and tie your shoes and put on your clothes. You go through cycles of your youth, then your teenage years, your young adult years, when you get married, you raise a family. We all go through cycles. There's cycles and orders within this construct. That's my point. All right. And most people don't understand that. They think when you die, you go to heaven. Heaven is a state of mind. It's within your consciousness. And you have to understand, when you see it in nature, how the trees die off and they wither and then they come back in spring. That's just like us. We're part of the cycles. We do the same thing. We just come back in different vessels until we get to a certain state of understanding and we grow in consciousness. We are here in this existence for a purpose and for a reason. It's just that when we come into these bodies, we're wiped clean, so we forget what that reason is. And you hope by the time that you live and you get to my age, you understand what your purpose is, right? Some of us go through life and never understand what their purpose is. That's my point. This last part. At first glance, everything seems to decay, renew, and respond to a defined cycle, but within the regularity, exception appears, one that is neither explained nor developed. It suggests that not all elements participate in the same process. Some endure, some remain. They do not follow the general rhythm, nor do they pass through the same stages of decline and renewal. While everything else transforms, they continue as if governed by a different logic. The reference is brief, almost incidental, yet it introduces a fracture that is difficult to ignore. If the order described is so precise and constant, the existence of exceptions becomes striking. And for that reason, it forces a reconsideration of the system as a whole. Are these preserved elements, forms that cannot be altered, or something that was never subject to the same rules to begin with? All right. And that was Earth, a closed system. I am going to hold up to you what it looks like. And as you see the ice walls and you see the known lands here, there's land and there's a wall here. There's land and there's a wall here. Like I told you, there's 9 concentric realms or 9 concentric rings. And the planets or planes of existence are within those realms. All right. And here's another vision, the gateway to Terra Infinita. Here's Enoch sitting and he's looking down at these planes of existence. And we're going to cover that when I come back. So I hope this has been beneficial to you guys. I was reading from, again, Claudio's work. I also read Claudio's work. Also read to you Guy Anderson's work. And he has 3 books out. So everything ties together neatly in a puzzle piece. It's up to you to do your work and do your research. I'm not saying you take this as 100% verbatim. What I'm telling you is through fasting, breath work, meditation / prayer, you will come into your own understanding of how these things work. I'm just here to reshare some information because I find it fascinating that most people don't talk about it. So anyway, I hope you guys have an amazing day and I hope this has been beneficial. I'll talk to you guys soon. You be the change you want to see all around this earth dome, because it's up to you and I to make a positive change. Talk to you soon. Bye. And thanks for joining me, Stephen. I can't tell if you're still here, but I hope you have a good day. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.